Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, join me each episode as we discuss all things guitar. So today we're discussing a style of music that's guaranteed to turn people off and cause looks of both confusion and discomfort. It's a style of music written, performed, and recorded pretty much solely for other musicians, and even some musicians can't hang with it. It takes incredible dedication to play it, and equal parts dedication to listen to it. Okay, so maybe I'm being a little dramatic for effect here, but this cold open is mostly accurate. I'm talking, of course, about jazz fusion, a highly technical musical genre that focuses on advanced improvisation over complex chord changes and played to odd time signature grooves. Let's just say there isn't a jazz fusion section at any but the most dedicated record shops. When discussing listening to jazz fusion, this movie quote immediately comes to mind.
Is it worth it? Oh yeah, it's worth it. If you're strong enough.
I've recently been diving into this music and finding it really awesome. My wife and daughters, not so much. And with that, welcome to Shad's Guitar Show, another exciting episode. Let's dive into the history and evolution of jazz fusion. So today we're diving into one of the most exciting, technically demanding, and creatively fearless genres in modern music, jazz fusion. Now, fusion has always lived at a crossroads. It combines the improvisational freedom of jazz with the power of rock, the grooves of funk, the complexity of progressive music, and influences from Latin, world music, classical music, and even electronic music. It's a style that has produced some of the greatest musicians to ever pick up an instrument. And for guitar players, fusion has become one of the ultimate proving grounds for technique, creativity, and tone. So today we'll explore where jazz fusion came from, how it's evolved through the decades, the bands that define each era, and we'll take a look at 5 legendary guitarists who changed the instrument forever, and the guitars, amps, and effects, of course, that created those unforgettable sounds. So let's start at the beginning. What is jazz fusion? Well, jazz fusion, often simply called fusion, is exactly what the name suggests. Rather than following traditional jazz standards and swing rhythms, fusion incorporates rock rhythms, funk grooves, complex harmony, extended improvisation, odd time signatures, electric instruments, and modern production. Unlike straight-ahead jazz, fusion often emphasizes energy and groove just as much as harmonic sophistication. Think of it as jazz with the volume turned up. So let's talk about the birth of fusion in the late 1960s. Although many musicians experimented with blending styles during the 60s, most historians point to one album as the official beginning of jazz fusion. In 1969, Miles Davis released Bitches Brew. Instead of acoustic jazz, Miles embraced electric piano, electric bass, rock drumming, long improvisations, studio editing, and psychedelic textures. The album shocked jazz fans, and some hated it, but others realized music had just entered an entirely new era. Nearly every major fusion musician of the 70s either played with Miles Davis or was heavily inspired by this record. So let's talk about the first great fusion bands of the 1970s. So the early 1970s became an explosion of creativity. Many of Miles Davis's former sidemen started their own groups. Weather Report, led by Joe Zawinul and Wayne Shorter, blended jazz, funk, world music, and atmospheric synthesizers. And when bassist Jaco Pastorius joined, the band became absolutely legendary. Albums like Heavy Weather remain fusion classics. Mahavishnu Orchestra. John McLaughlin's Mahavishnu Orchestra changed guitar playing forever. Their music featured lightning-fast unison lines, odd meters, Indian classical influences, rock aggression, and incredible improvisation. Albums like The Inner Mounting Flame and Birds of Fire are still considered essential listening. Return to Forever. Keyboardist Chick Corea formed Return to Forever in 1972. The band evolved from Latin-influenced jazz into high-energy fusion featuring guitarist Al Di Meola. Their music combined flamenco, rock, classical, and jazz with astonishing technical precision. Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters. Herbie Hancock pushed fusion towards funk. Albums like Headhunters became hugely influential by combining jazz improvisation with irresistible grooves. As the decade progressed, fusion became even more polished. Bands expanded into funk, R&B, Brazilian music, pop, and progressive rock. The 1980s, fusion goes high-tech. The 1980s brought digital recording, MIDI, rack processors, and pristine production. Fusion became cleaner and often more melodic. Some musicians criticized this era for becoming too polished, but it also produced incredible players. The Yellow Jackets. Originally rooted in jazz and R&B, Yellow Jackets became one of fusion's most enduring groups, and it features guitarist Larry Carlton, who is one of the most recorded session guitarists of the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s on the LA scene. Tribal Tech. Scott Henderson's guitar work in the band Tribal Tech combined blues, rock, bebop, and funk into one of the most unique fusion voices ever heard. And that brings us to one of the most legendary guitarists of this genre, Allan Holdsworth. Holdsworth's influence cannot be overstated. His legato playing sounded unlike anyone before him. Even Eddie Van Halen called Holdsworth one of his favorite guitarists and biggest influences. Pretty much every technically minded guitarist of the last 40 years has cited Holdsworth as an influence, from Tosin Abasi to Frank Zappa. His playing had a profound impact on high-performance guitar playing. We will definitely be doing an episode on him very soon. The 1990s, groove and world music. Fusion diversified dramatically during the 90s. Bands began incorporating hip-hop rhythms, drum loops, world music, and electronic textures, while still maintaining jazz improvisation. Important artists include Tribal Tech, John Scofield, Mike Stern, Vital Information, Cab, and later in the decade, guitarist Oz Noy. Progressive metal also began borrowing heavily from fusion harmony. The 2000s. The internet exposed players to music from around the world, and fusion became more international than ever. Notable artists include The Aristocrats, Hiromi, Wayne Krantz, Guthrie Govan, and Chick Corea's Electric Band continuing to be an influence. Many modern progressive bands also incorporated fusion ideas. The 2010s. Fusion experienced something of a renaissance. Younger players blended jazz, metal, gospel, neo-soul, progressive rock, and electronic music. Artists like Snarky Puppy, The Aristocrats, Cory Wong, Julian Lage, and Mark Lettieri introduced fusion concepts to an entirely new audience. Fusion today. Modern fusion has become almost impossible to define. Players now draw inspiration from jazz, hip-hop, EDM, progressive metal, classical, gospel, and world music. Social media and YouTube have also helped create an entirely new generation of fusion musicians. Today's artists often move effortlessly between genres without worrying about labels. So let's step back and define 5 guitarists who basically defined fusion. Number 1, John McLaughlin. No player influenced early fusion more. His blistering alternate picking, Indian music influences, and incredible rhythmic precision redefined what jazz guitar could become. Essential listening would be Mahavishnu Orchestra's Birds of Fire. Allan Holdsworth. Holdsworth completely reinvented guitar phrasing. His enormous intervallic lines and ultra-smooth legato playing sounded more like a saxophone than a guitar. Players from Joe Satriani to Eddie Van Halen cite him as one of their biggest influences. Al Di Meola, one of the greatest alternate pickers ever. His combination of speed, precision, Latin rhythms, and acoustic virtuosity remain unmatched. Classic albums include Elegant Gypsy and Casino. And one of my favorites, Scott Henderson. Henderson brought blues vocabulary into fusion without sacrificing harmonic sophistication. His work with Tribal Tech helped define fusion during the late 80s and into the 90s. And Guthrie Govan. modern fusion's ultimate all-around guitarist, equally comfortable with jazz, blues, rock, country, metal, and classical. His work with the Aristocrats has become essential listening for today's players. Alright, so let's take a look at some of the gear common to the fusion genre. So let's talk guitars. Most iconic fusion players favored instruments with exceptional playability and versatile electronics. Early on, popular choices included the Gibson ES-335 and Les Paul, the Fender Stratocaster and Telecaster, and as the genre evolved, we saw a lot more players kind of gravitating towards Ibanez, the Artist RG and AZ models. We see players like John McLaughlin using PRS Custom 24 guitars, modern players using Suhr Moderns, Kiesel guitars, and a lot of Ernie Ball Music Man guitars. And very recently, brands like Strandberg headless guitars in the modern era. And a lot of players also favor floating tremolos and flatter fingerboards for expressive phrasing and technical playing. So let's talk amplifiers. Fusion has seen almost every type of amplifier imaginable, but classic choices include Fender Twin or Deluxe Reverbs, Mesa Boogie Mark Series, Mesa Lone Stars, the Roland JC120. For a more traditional sound, the Polytone Mini Brute, and recently a lot of two-rock amplifiers. Most fusion players favor clean headroom with smooth, compressed overdrive rather than saturated distortion. For effects, fusion guitarists often build sophisticated pedal boards, and common effects include compression, overdrive, delay, reverb, chorus, flanger, phaser, envelope filter, octave pedals, and volume pedals. Rack systems became extremely popular during the 1980s, and players frequently used processors from TC Electronic, Eventide, Lexicon, ADA, and Rocktron. And today, many fusion musicians use modern modelers like the Neural DSP Quad Cortex, Fractal Audio Axe-FX 3, and Line 6 Helix, giving them access to studio-quality tones and effects in a single unit. Why fusion still matters? Well, fusion isn't simply about playing fast. The greatest fusion musicians combine technique, melody, harmony, rhythm, creativity, and emotion. The best players never let virtuosity overshadow musicality. Whether it's John McLaughlin's explosive intensity, Alan Holdsworth's floating legato, Al Di Meola's precision, Scott Henderson's blues-infused playing, or Guthrie Govan's seemingly limitless vocabulary. Each reminds us that great fusion is ultimately about expressing something unique. Even after more than 50 years, jazz fusion continues to evolve. Every generation of musicians adds new influences, new technology, and new ideas, ensuring that the genre remains one of the most innovative and inspiring corners of the guitar world. If you've enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and share it with a fellow guitar player or jazz fan, and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. Also, make sure to subscribe to Shad's Guitar Show on YouTube and follow me on Instagram. And if you're looking to expand your own playing, spend some time with the records we talked about today. From Bitches Brew to Mahavishnu Orchestra, Return to Forever, Tribal Tech, and the Aristocrats, there's a lifetime of inspiration waiting in the world of jazz fusion. And while listening to this music will undoubtedly be humbling for most of us, we can rest in the knowledge that, thankfully, the best guitar player is the one having the most fun.